We all love Hokkien Mee in this house, agreed? And after you have spent enough time with someone you love, sooner or later, for better or worse, you will have to meet their parents. There was a time in Singapore before the first plate of fried Hokkien Mee was served along Rocher Road, where people referred to these prawn noodles as Hokkien Mee. The Hokkien immigrants from Fujian, China, knew that the sea was generous in ports like Penang and Singapore. Prawns were cheap and plentiful, perfect for a bowl that could feed many. It is said that the first plate of fried Hokkien Mee was put together with leftovers. A quick late night meal thrown together after work, cooked in a wok that is 50 centimeters off the ground. And if you know how fried Hokkien Mee is made, which you should if you watch this channel, you'll know that those leftovers could only have come from a prawn noodle stall, which makes both noodle dishes family. So far this year, we have explored the Cantonese noodles, wonton mee, and most recently the Teochew noodles, bak chor mee. And now, it's time to visit the first Hokkien Mee and find the best one.一个大虾面干的。是的。是的。什么种面？黄面。黄面，那加完啊，可以。谢谢。看不够可以来。Alright, first stop of the series. Just like the bak chor mee series, we are starting at 58. Obviously a different 58, and I got their $12 big prawn noodles. This is gonna be the default for this series, and after much deliberation, I'm going with dry. Cause A, you get this much tastier noodles, and B, you get untainted soup. And while we always begin with a big bite of noodles in the previous series, this time we want the pure flavor of the broth. So, always interesting to be starting a new series. Coming from a previous series, all your yardsticks are gone. There are new questions being asked. You get to learn about your preferences once again. That's why it's so fun to do this. I want to be very careful what I define as a good prawn broth, because while this bowl is very good, very balanced, you get porkiness, you get the shrimp notes on top, you get a good base of shallots, and it's remarkably sweet. While it is very good, I have a very good feeling that we will have many good bowls this series. And putting it out there early, I do like the shrimpy flavors to be stronger for prawn broth. Some of you may like it to be more balanced, in which case this is more for you. And then we move on to the prawn. While in fried Hokkien Mee, I would say that the prawns are not important. The noodles are more expensive. For this series, we're gonna prioritize the prawns as the topping. The bite on it is so good. The snap of the prawns when it is this size is 10 times more satisfying. And the way they have prepared it like this, you can get the prawn butter all in one soup, even dropping it into the noodles to have together. Very satisfying. I don't know what the market rate is. Does $12 buy you 1.5 big prawns? I'm gonna keep an eye out for that. Oh, other small hits, I like their sliced pork. It's machine sliced very thinly, and yet it's tough because it's cut along the grain, I believe. That combination gives a very nice texture, and the contrast is very nice when you eat it with the noodles. But anyway, time for the misses. The ghee flavor is super strong. It is the strongest ghee flavor I've had in the last 5 years. It is so strong that it's interfering with the sauce. Like I took a big mouthful, right, trying to decipher the sauce, but then there's just this flavor like ghee. And one last small miss is that it's spicy. I know, LJ, order spicy, not spicy, what are you talking about? It is spicy enough to stun me for like 10 seconds after eating it. And I mentioned this before, the quality of good spiciness is accuracy. You want to hit the spicy average of the most people as possible. I think this is slightly high. Alright, good start! My mind is racing with questions, and the only way to answer it is to eat more. I'll see you guys at the next stop. Hello, 一个特大虾面是要辣黄面面干干的啊 Thank you. We are now at Compassvale at Big Prawn Noodle. I feel like I should have asked this question before this series, but how big are we going? If there is a normal prawn, big prawn, and an extra big prawn, which one do I order to give the most accurate picture? Personally, I feel like I ordered the most expensive one for them to give their best shot. But then I also realized that most people will not order the most expensive one. Anyway, I went with the biggest option, and it seems like I have half the volume in prawn and half in noodles. The soup doesn't look orange at all. And is this burnt shallots? Not sure if it's intentional. Anyway. Good texture on the noodles. They had the bean sprouts, which I know some of you don't like, and kangkong. And this fried shallot chips, quite a lot of it. You mix all of it up with the noodles, mix for quite a bite. Prawns are cooked very well as well. Very snappy, the texture is really nice. And they give you 5, but it is so sweet. Both the noodles and the soup. This will be my 9th time saying this now. Sweetness for contrast in savory food is very common and very effective. But when it takes the majority share, such that the first taste is sweetness rather than savoriness, personally I think it's too much. Like your chao guo tiaos, your goloyo, the first flavor should still be savoriness. Obviously up to personal preference, like there are people who really love the sweetness, that's why there's things like tian sui mian. But personally I don't like it. But perhaps the bigger miss that I find is the lack of prawn flavor, especially in the soup. This is tricky because I want to say there is the sweetness of shrimps that forms the base of the soup. But there isn't that prawn seafoody note that you get from the prawn head or prawn butter. I don't know what's the word for this, but 那个味道好像老了. All this is to say that the primary flavor is now more sweet forward. It almost tastes like the Hae Mee ham shrimp roll, which is not what I would expect. Also, the prawn quality, while cooked well, is quite average. Nor do I get a strong prawn flavor from it. And there's one even more unfair miss that I want to hold on to first. I want to check with the last prawn meat of the day. So I'll see you guys there. 吃的一个 XL 干的腰辣黄面。
OK， 14块3，汤不够还可以来加。
好的，谢谢。We are now at Loyang Way, and keeping up with it, I did the XL, 5 prawns, way bigger bowl of soup, and this really pretty noodles, almost like a bolognese. Okay, let's dig in. I understand it now. This broth is much better than the previous one, for one reason. When you eat prawns, which part has the most flavor? The head, right? Specifically, this orange part. These are mostly a complex mix of lipids from the prawns tomally and the head tissue. When you boil them into a broth, it separates from the head to form this layer of seemingly orange oil on top of the broth. And that gives the very distinctive prawn flavor. It's almost like a natural xiang yu, one that you will put on your own ramen. However, when you overboil this, the structure starts to break down and the compounds dissolve into the water where it's not as obvious. This is the key difference between this bowl and the previous one, because the previous one was all brown with none of that top note of that prawn flavor. I have a feeling about this just now, but I don't know how to articulate it. I think this is the answer, which then brings into question broth management. How are you supposed to manage your broth if this breaks down over time? But we get to that later. Good noodles, very strong shallot sweetness, is dominated by lard. The shallot sweetness can get a bit too much, especially with the amount used in prawn noodles. You can see how sandy it is with shallot bits, but this is balanced very well. Also, the least key flavor I had today. Prawns are decent size, I wouldn't say XL, but a tad soft. Now I promise you, by the end of the series, I will have studied up on prawns. Now I still don't know enough to speak, but if I were to guess, these prawns are baname prawns, which don't have as strong a flavor, but has pretty good texture and is cheap. So these are suitable to be served as topping because you realize that they all still have their heads on. The prawns used for the broth itself would be another kind of prawn. There are different prawns for different use cases. These prawns are cooked a bit soft, but are pretty sweet. Nice. Okay, let's wrap it up here. I'll see you guys at the cafe. We are now at Oak and Amber. This place is so ulu that this is the nearest cafe that I could find, and you actually have to apply for a camp pass just to come in. But somehow, it is full house. I got myself a coffee. What a start to the series, so much to learn. Even just in the first episode, all the indicators of qualities are coming up. How you balance sweetness in the dish, since prawn noodles really like to use shallots, the quality and the bite of the prawn, and most interestingly, this orange hue on good prawn noodle soups. Unlike most broths, prawn broth reach their peak of their flavor very quickly and actually deteriorates as you boil it further, which really brings into question broth management. How do you keep your broth at tip-top condition with customers always pouring in? Similar to Klang style bak kut teh, there are going to be peaks and dips in your quality, which you prawn noodle enthusiasts will already know. What is the time slot to visit your favorite prawn noodle store? Unfortunately, while shooting this, I cannot account for that. I'll try to visit each place as close to peak lunch hour as possible, but that's as far as I can go. I try to be as honest as I can on this channel, which means that I need to admit things that aren't gonna serve me. Honesty is easy when you don't have to lie. So, as of the 3 bowls of noodles today, I would say that the dry prawn noodles are inferior to bak chor mee. What we had today on the top level are shallot oil, lard, maybe a little bit of shrimps. It is the same bak chor mee base, but without the accents of black vinegar or ketchup. And to a certain extent, an inferior noodle, comparing yellow noodle to mee pok. Coming from some of the best bak chor mees in Singapore, I have to admit that I cannot really fake my enthusiasm. The level of flavor from the previous series, the amount that it covers your palate, is, I want to say, objectively more. I know this messes with my accuracy, my credibility, whatever that means, but I feel like I have to tell you guys. Maybe moving forward, I'll focus more on things that are specific to the prawn noodle dish, like the quality of broth, the quality of prawns. I'll go study and talk more on that. But for now, the verdict for today. 1 plate I'll walk for the prawn noodles, 2 plate I'll take a bus for the prawn noodles, and 3 plates I'll go anywhere in the city for the prawn noodles. And the prawn noodles today get 212. Very tricky series. Cause in bak kut teh, broth management, the window in which it can be considered its peak is 1 hour past a certain point. Like anywhere from tender to melt in your mouth, good enough to consider peak. But in prawn noodles, I think the window in which the orange layer can stay on top is relatively smaller. So I'm a little bit worried that an uncomfortable amount of the rating might be dependent on luck. Not that it matters. The reminder we have every series, like what you like, don't care what Eldrick thinks. The fact that the place can appear on this series means that it has a sufficiently large fan base. Which reminds me, thank you for all the recommendations. If you haven't already done so, please let me know your favorite prawn mee spots. I'm just about to wrap up the list for this series. But for now, that's all I have for you guys this time. I'll see you on the next video. Bye!